Hello again, my name is Doug Smith and welcome back to another edition of Portsmouth This Week, the voice of Portsmouth Town Hall. Our special guest today for this segment is Galen Mc Govern, our wastewater manager, and welcome back, Galen.
Thank you. I think I was here in October.
Yeah, I'm sure time flies, so it seems like just yesterday probably, right?
It's been going fast, yes,
Yeah.
and going well, though.
Well, that's good. So when is our sewer system going live?
Sewers are going in next week, I believe.
April Fools, guys. We're just kidding you. We do know that we've got outdated cesspools, failing septic systems, and they're a major source of pollution in Portsmouth. A lot of closed shell fishing areas, elevated counts of bacteria at beaches. And this ordinance that you're enforcing now, the Portsmouth Wastewater Ordinance, went into effect on 21 September 2015. What are some of the key elements of this ordinance or law that all Portsmouth residents need to know?
Well, the key elements are that everybody in town has to have a first maintenance inspection and a pump out. So when a resident receives a letter from the town, they have 60 days to do that, have an inspection and a pump out. And it's important to know that because a lot of people think they just need a pump out, but you need an inspection also. So 2 months to complete that, which is plenty of time. And we have a list of, I counted this morning, almost 40 inspectors on the list, and anybody can be on that list if they have the right qualifications. Call somebody on the list and schedule it.
So people can go on your town website and find this list of names?
The list is on the website.
Okay.
Really anything we talk about today is on the website under wastewater.
Okay, so the town sends you a notice, and how is this being phased in?
Well, that's where we go to our map over here. We started in this area right here of Island Park, where the big number 1 is. So that area has been completed already, near the cove here. We've already sent out the letters for Area 2 over here, and those are due to be completed by May 1st. And then, we're phasing in slowly in Island Park and Portsmouth Park, and then we move to the larger part of the town. But these 2 areas will be completed by next summer, July 2017. I can show you the whole town because that's an important point. Everybody in the town has to do this.
It's just a question of when.
When. All the first maintenance inspections in town will be completed by 2022.
Okay.
So it seems like a long way off, but as you said in the beginning, it's going quickly. So, for example, if you look over at Prudence Island, they're last.
Right.
They're going to be toward the end of 2022, and it just gets phased in after Island Park and Portsmouth Park. We move up to, up near the Mount Hope Bridge. That's the next area.
Okay.
And so on.
So if somebody wants to get ahead of the game and, say, have their septic system inspected and pumped before they get notified, can that still count?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When people call, I tell them that. I said, if you're going to have a pump out, you might as well do your first maintenance inspection now, so that, let's say if you have a conventional system, you do your pump out, you do your inspection, and then you're reset for 5 years. You won't have to do it again for 5 years.
Okay, so there's a 5-year period where your inspection is good.
So it'll just set based on the date you do it. And that brings up another issue. If you have a cesspool, for example, and it's functioning and you want to keep the cesspool as long as
How do you know if a cesspool is functioning, though?
Well,
it's just a hole in the ground, right?
Well, you have the inspection. I mean, if the water in the cesspool is above the pipe, it's considered failing. There are signs to look to see if it's failing. If there's no water in there at all, it's failing. But anyway, if you have a cesspool after your first inspection, you have to have it done every 2 years with a pump out until it has to be removed. There are about 15 people in town that have holding tanks, so those have to be pumped out every year and inspected once a year. We should probably talk a little bit more about cesspools. This is a hot topic now because if a house sells within a year of the sale, if the house has a cesspool, it has to come out. And that's actually statewide, but it's also, it was passed in the town actually prior to the state law.
Yeah, we have a lot of older houses. We have a long history here, and we have a lot of older houses. I'm sure we have our share of cesspools. Any idea how many in the town broadly?
Well, just in this first little area that I was talking about in
Island Park?
Island Park here, there were at least, just in number 1, there were at least 30 cesspools. So that gives you an indication.
It's a major issue. Yeah.
Right, a major issue.
Yeah. Now, these things are, this inspection and pump out and all the other inspection requirements are probably fairly expensive. Is there financial support available for people, low interest loans, et cetera, things like that?
Well, there's not support available for the pump out and inspection. And you're right, those can cost, a few $100s.
Oh, okay.
But if your system fails, if you have a cesspool that's
Right.
failing or you have a conventional system that's failing, we're seeing both because they're getting older, of course. We do have currently the Portsmouth loan program that's good for $25,000 over 10 years, and that's a 5% interest rate. And we recently, I'm hoping within a week or two, we'll have the CSLIP program, the Community Septic System Loan Program. It's a mouthful, at 1% and the same terms, $25,000, 10 years, at 1% interest. So it's a better deal.
Yeah.
And
Now, if somebody's, have we actually used some of these, have people applied for some of the town loans, for example?
yes, there's at least a dozen people that took advantage of the
5%.
Portsmouth loan program before, really even before this ordinance was passed. So, yeah, people have taken advantage of it.
Okay, and information about all this is available on the town website?
Everything we're talking about is on the website under Wastewater.
Okay, is there any way that people who already have a 5% loan can change that over to a 1% loan? Or is this too hard for the government bureaucracy to figure out?
We thought originally they were going to be able to do that, and I think if somebody requests it, we may be able to work with them, but we did get word the other day that it's not that economical to do so, actually, because you got to pay new fees to refinance.
It's like closing costs and things like that, yeah.
Right.
Okay, one of the things, just getting back to the whole town thing for a second. So this thing goes forward until the whole town is done by, what did you say, 2025 or 2022?
Right.
Does it then roll over again? I mean, is this going to be a continuous thing that every 5 years?
Well, that's what
something?
my coworker was joking with me. Then are you going to be out of a job, in 2022?
Yeah, because everybody will be in compliance, right?
Yes, it just keeps going. So the town wants all residents to maintain their septic systems. So inspections will continue, pump outs will continue. It'll all be based on the dates like we talked about. If you do a first maintenance inspection, 5 years later, you'll have another inspection.
Yeah.
And it'll just keep going. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that's fair. We live in a coastal community here, so we're probably polluting the bay pretty much. What happens if people just ignore the notices they get from the town?
Well, we've had a couple cases like that already where, let me just step back a minute. We first send the initial letter, and then if people ignore that, we're pretty nice about it. We send them a second letter, second notice. 30 days later, if they ignore that, we do send a notice of violation, And if you ignore that, which has also happened, a resident will get a citation to municipal court. And we had our first session of municipal court last month. We did fine one resident, and a couple of the cases have been continued to this month.
Okay. So these court cases are heard in our municipal court, which
Right.
takes place in the town council chamber, as I understand it.
Right.
Okay.
I think it's the second Wednesday of the month, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can the public go in and watch that? I
As
presume
far
so,
as I
right?
know, it's open.
Yeah.
I don't know how entertaining it is.
Well,
but
it might be. I can see somebody trying to explain why their septic system or cesspool is not polluting to the judge and see,
Right.
see how that
right.
works. That might be kind of entertaining.
Well, it's just really a matter of if you follow the rules and you complete your inspection, you'll be all set. You won't end up in municipal court. You will not get fined. So.
Yeah, and I think we need to remember this whole wastewater management district that we have is because we really didn't want sewers in Portsmouth. So, and sewers, there would also have been a cost associated with sewers as well. So this is a different way to manage things. And I suppose it makes sense. What other kind of questions have you been getting about this?
Well, I definitely get a lot of the same sort of questions in the office. I'll give you a couple examples. I have a conforming system, am I all set? And I think there's some confusion from the program before, actually, or who's going to inspect my system? Does the town send an inspector?
Yeah.
So if you have a conforming system, that's great, but you still have to get an inspection and a pump out.
Okay, well, a conforming system, but it's got to be inspected, right?
Correct.
So you can't
Right.
just come in and say,
Right,
Right.
but there just seems to be some confusion about that.
Yeah.
Or the other thing we hear quite a bit of is, I haven't had my septic tank pumped in 20 years or longer, 30 years, and people are proud of that. Now, that's not
Only in Portsmouth.
that's not something to be proud of, because if you've ever seen,
Yeah.
a septic tank that hasn't been pumped, it's chock full of solids.
yeah,
And what happens is those solids go out in the drain field, and then you may have a costly repair. So it's just like the best analogy is, changing the oil in your car.
sure.
You really have to maintain them, and at least every 3 to 5 years, a pump out is a good idea.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think it's a good thing because it kind of unifies everything under a set of laws that we can all understand, which kind of gives you an incentive to do this thing, which is good for your septic system.
Well, and it's good for the environment. I
Absolutely.
mean, that's the whole reason we're doing this.
How about
Right.
some other questions? I bet you get some doozies.
Well, a lot of people think the pollution in the cove is coming from Fall River. Of course,
Yeah, we blame Fall River for a
of
lot.
course, that's not true. There's a wastewater plant that has to adhere to federal guidelines. They're not dumping sewage in the water, and
Though. Yeah. Well, the thing is, I suppose you could say that anywhere on this estuary, that between Providence and down to us, you could say that we're getting some pollution from there. Certainly from Providence, with some of the issues we've seen during storms, for example.
well, now of course they have those giant tunnels that are capturing
Yeah.
all the storm water, and so the health. I think people will start to see noticeable effects in the Bay and in Portsmouth.
Yeah.
And I think the ordinance is really already doing what it's supposed to do.
Galen, thanks so much. We're out of time already. I told you it was going to fly down here.
Right,
But
right.
thanks so much for coming on, and
Okay,
happy April Fool's Day.
right. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be back. Welcome back to the second half of our program today. Our special guest today is Sanne Kure-Jensen, who is our Portsmouth Recycling Coordinator. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit first about your background, and then we can get into the recycling stuff. But I'm just kind of curious as to how you came about getting into this area.
Well, I've been an avid recycler for all the years I can remember. I remember being a child, and as Girl Scouts, we went around the neighborhood and collected all those big, thick phone books that used to be generated, and then we would turn them in. Sometimes we collected soda cans and other things for various projects as the years went by. We incorporated all the recycling that we could in our daily lives. We compost, we basically take very little to the landfill or to the transfer station.
Now, do you live in Portsmouth yourself?
I do, yes,
okay,
I do.
That's good. So you experience the transfer station,
Absolutely.
not just... Okay. So let's talk about, I guess, recycling in general. First, you know, one of the things that we keep seeing is the need to increase our recycling rate. So can you kind of explain, what do you mean by recycling, and what is our recycling rate?
Okay. It's very straightforward. The recycling rate is the amount of recycling by weight compared to all the material that runs through the transfer station. So that would be our recycling, mixed paper, mixed plastics, metals, etc., that goes to the landfill. Also included would be the weight of the solid waste. So they call it MSW, or municipal solid waste, but it's everything that goes in the pit at the transfer station.
Okay, so you have the total amount of stuff that we have to haul out of here.
Right.
And then you subtract the part that's paper,
Recycling.
plastic, the recycled
Yep,
goods.
yep.
So what is our recycle rate?
Last month it was under 22%.
Really?
It was horrible. The last 2 months prior to that it had been around 27. We're not doing a good job as a community as a whole.
Can you attribute that to anything? I mean,
We can't. If we knew what it was, we would address it as fast as possible. We find that the residents, not enough of the residents are actively recycling.
because I'll tell you, my biggest recycling thing is paper. You know, I get magazines. I can't believe how much paper I'm taking down there.
Yep. The paper and cardboard has a slightly higher value, so please keep putting that in the bin at the transfer station.
Okay. So what would you like? Obviously, we'd like to see it go up to what, maybe 40% or?
Our financial incentives through Rhode Island Resource Recovery encourage a minimum of 35%, and anything above that is gravy, but that's where we reach the maximum in incentives from Resource Recovery.
Okay, what kind of incentives are we talking about? Money?
They give us a break, $1 per ton on what's called the tipping fee, or the price to bring that trash to the Johnston landfill, for various tiers. At 25%, we receive $1 off, and at other thresholds, up to $3 off of that per ton delivery fee, basically
okay,
drop-off
so it
fee.
actually pays off in terms of
We
money.
get money
that we
back to the
have
town.
spend.
Right.
Wow, what a concept.
Yeah. We also get money as in a profit sharing for the recycling materials that we send, because Resource Recovery batches that with the recycling materials from all the other communities, and then a prorated share of the sales comes back to the towns.
Okay. You know, one of the things that is kind of a concern in this state is we have one dump that one landfill, I guess, that this all goes to, and I keep seeing talk, at least, about the landfill getting filled up. Is that the case?
It's very legitimate.
And what should we be looking at? And trying to open another one, or?
Or an alternative, there are several things being looked at by other, not our town, but the statewide level. They're looking at whether we haul it out of state or not, whether we burn it, whether we mine through the resources of the early ones, whether we can reopen another stage on top of the other ones. There's questions about stability for that.
Sure. It's a very interesting topic, because it seems like 20% is ridiculous. That's like, what are people throwing their newspapers in the trash, I guess? I don't know.
There are a lot of people who drive right by the recycling on the way to the main tip area.
Yeah. I guess, what I've always wanted to know, I've always wanted to have some little reporter or something follow one of these things to see where they go. Like I know we go down there, we separate here in Portsmouth bottles and cans, paper waste, yard waste. Mm-hmm. Does yard waste also count towards recycling, I wonder?
It does not. It counts as diversion. Okay, so it's diverted from going into the landfill, which is great. It doesn't count in that recycling rate, but we have other incentives that encourage diversion.
Okay,
so we divert construction waste, we divert electronic waste, we divert clothes and textiles and books. That's all great. We do a very good job of those.
And that all doesn't count on our final bill we get from
there are different ways that different things get
Sure.
billed. The C&D has a cost to be hauled away,
Yeah.
but it's not allowed to be in the regular pit. It's not allowed to go in the landfill. And we do a good job of the separation. We do a good job of having other options for people to divert. But the straight mixed recycling, if you pardon my term, the plastic, metal, cans, glass, and the paper, cardboard is what's considered the recycling towards that recycling rate.
Yeah. So I think people should know that there's money involved here, and this could help our town budget, for example,
Absolutely.
over time, et cetera. But one of the things that I keep seeing reference to a single stream recycling.
Right.
What is that exactly?
Well, at the resource recovery facility in Johnston, with the transfers that they do there, the management they do there, they run all those mixed recyclables through an elaborate system of sorters with human help and a lot of mechanical robotic help that separates those out so that they can create a bale of this kind of plastic and that kind of plastic and that metal and that glass and paper and so on. And then they sell those baled recyclables to customers who want to buy that to turn it into new products. And that's perfectly wonderful. We technically could deliver all our things in one bin, but because our transfer station footprint is so small, we are more space efficient to separate them the way that we do. And that allows us to compress everything in the paper one much more tightly than if we had them mixed.
Yeah.
We pay by the trip to send it to Johnston. If we can make that bin fuller, or more full, we save money on the hauling.
And compress tighter?
It can compress significantly tighter by having the cardboard and paper separate.
Okay. Well, that's a great explanation. I've never heard that before because, again, a way to kind of make money.
It
for the
is.
town.
We're trying to be as efficient as we can to do our best to keep the recycling high and the transfer station costs down.
Down as low as we can.
Yeah.
One of the initiatives that have come up since you've been in the job has been the town offering different kind of recycling containers. Do you want to mention those?
Sure. We have the rectangular blue bin that people can use at home to collect their recyclables. We encourage people to buy two of them, one for the paper, one for the other mixed recyclables. Obviously, that's an optional item. We offer those at just $7 a bin. They're very clean. They're easy to hose off if people want to do that. And they're available right at the tax collector's office in Town Hall. We also have a compost bin. People who want to do a little backyard composting can come and purchase a bin from us. It's the same one that Johnston offers. We charge the same price, $45, but people only have to purchase that at Town Hall, at the tax collector's office, instead of driving all the way to Johnston to pick it up. And then we arrange to deliver those to people at the DPW.
Okay, now back up a second. Do we have the recycling? You're talking about the boxes, like, right?
The compost bin in our case is like a big black
Yeah, I don't mean
cylinder.
the compost bin.
Yep.
Back up to the blue recycling.
Yep.
Those are the boxes?
It's like a giant tote, a big rectangular blue tote.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because one of the issues that I have with this is my own personal issue, is I can't get a big container like a trash can into my car to take down to the.
These are lower and shorter than that.
Yeah. So say again, how do you get those from the town?
At the tax collector's office, they will give it to you. You can go home with
Okay.
it right that day.
Okay, super.
Yep.
That's good to know.
Yep.
How's that process going? Are you getting people more interested?
Well, in the recent months, we've sold over 50 recycle bins. And compost bins, about 2025, there's definitely been an increase as the weather has warmed and people start thinking
Sure.
about their gardens.
Well, people need to know that they can use that compost in many ways in a garden, for sure.
Right. And again, that's going to save the town money on hauling, because right now we're hauling all that compostable material, the yard waste that people bring to the transfer station. We pay to haul it all the way to Johnston, where they make it into compost. Why don't we make the compost right here and not
makes so
haul
much-
it to our transfer station and then haul it again to Johnston?
Yeah, it makes so much sense. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, I think this is great, and I think people should realize that by not recycling, they're costing all of us, including them, money. And it seems to me we ought to be able to get the recycling rate up to at least kind of half. I mean, what that means is half of the stuff is being recycled and the other is going in the trash, right? Even half.
We could do much better. A year, 18 months ago, our town was over 35. It was
Yeah.
phenomenal.
So what happened?
It changed in February and March of last year, the really snowy months. People got out of the habit and never went back.
Yeah.
We hoped that it was a temporary lull, and through the summer it showed that people just said, why do it?
Yeah.
And they didn't get back to it. We're all kind of scratching our heads, how can we reach out to people, and we're trying with various programs to sort of encourage people to let them know there are financial incentives for the town, which will impact the cost of the sticker.
Yeah.
So we hope people will hear the message and
Geez,
take the effort.
I would like to think so, because it sounds like a win-win all around if you do it. Now, we have a recycling committee, I think, don't we, in town?
We do.
How many members do you have of that?
8 or 9
Okay.
dedicated volunteers who meet monthly and make recommendations to the town.
Okay. Now, do you guys ever kind of go down there and sort of watch the recycling process so you can give people hints, hey, why aren't you recycling more or something?
Many of the volunteers are regular participants. They have stickers, so they're there, bringing their own material.
Yeah.
And many of them go down when we have a special event, such as a standalone bulky waste collection or an e-waste collection, and they'll help distribute flyers and let people know.
Yeah, that e-waste collection was a really good thing, and it's too bad that our current, I guess, vendor for something doesn't allow us to do that at our transfer station.
That's a statewide problem, and it's everything to do with where did it go next. It went to a company who suddenly had their hands tied about the volume they were allowed to process, and that meant that they couldn't work with everybody anymore. We couldn't, 38 towns couldn't work with them. They are now taking material only from 5 towns. So we have worked, established a little bit of a partnership with another organization known as Indie Cycle, and they will be doing sort of standalone e-waste collection days in various places around the community. Our Portsmouth website lists the various places where Indie Cycle will be
Yeah, I think there was
making
one recently
collections.
at Roger Williams University or something right
There,
across the bridge.
very close to that is a farmer's market. They've, for a long
Yeah,
time, been
farmer's
going to the
market right
farmer's
there on
market. They
Medicom.
also often go to the Newport Vineyards, the market that's at that vineyard. And we have another event coming up in May at the high school. We also have an Eco Depot coming up in June, which will include another e-waste collection event.
Okay, that's good to know. Particularly if you can get the word out. In fact, we can help on this program by telling people when those dates are going to be.
Right.
One of the interesting issues here is, and I don't know where I got these factoids from, but we have about 7,000 houses in Portsmouth, and yet we only have about 4,500 transfer station stickers. So I guess my question is, what do those other 2,500 houses do for?
Sure, I have an answer for that.
And our
I
time,
would
we
say
got 30 seconds.
We'll
so.
be fast. They're paying private haulers, like Waste Management or BFI or other companies, to pick it up at their driveway.
That's
the
the short
majority.
answer, and
That's
we
the short
really think
answer.
that that's picking up the slack. I guess some people feel that there may be some slackers here trying to use their neighbor's truck or something.
There
like
probably are.
that. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a very interesting subject. You might consider doing a survey on the town website about recycling, just to let people kind of know what, and give you some feedback. on
Look
what's
forward to
going
it.
on. The Portsmouth Police Department, as we all know, we're looking at getting a new police building in Portsmouth, and for people who don't know, who have never been in the police department, who have no idea why we need a new police department building, they're conducting tours Tuesdays at 1 p.m. The other announcement I just want to make is there's a genealogy series being co-sponsored at the Public Library, Portsmouth Free Public Library, and the Portsmouth Historical Society by Linda Rigo, who's going to talk about genealogy. It's actually a course. There's still space available. Call the library for a seat. That's all for me. Doug Smith signing off. See you next time.